And this is happened recently to a good friend of mine whose cousin was murdered last week. Hopefully you have heard about it. Hopefully, I mean, and that I'm hoping that the news has gone out, because it is only by making these policies and Israel's inhumane actions known to the world that we can hope to increase the pressure needed to make Israel stop. And so last week, Israel murdered 27-year-old Ahmed Arakat on the day of his sister's wedding. Until now, Israel is holding his corpse hostage at the Green Forensic Institute, which is part of Tel Aviv University. Ahmed's body is one of 63 frozen corpses being withheld from families, denying families a chance to say goodbye and to lay their loved ones to rest. And so there is a petition right now that I'm going to ask you to sign, and hopefully we'll put it in the comment section for you, that is calling for the release of these bodies, returning them to their families, and calling on academic institutions around the world to cut their ties with Tel Aviv University. And this is part of the global boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, which is initiated and called for by Palestinian civil society as one of the ways to try to hold Israel accountable for its massive and ongoing human rights abuses. Some people question whether academic institutions need to be a part of that, but academic institutions, Israeli academic institutions, are very much a part and complicit in Israel's violations of Palestinian human rights, as we see here with this Greenberg Forensic Institute, part of Tel Aviv University, that is working with the Israeli military to withhold Palestinian corpses from their families. Again, we'll put that petition in the chat for you. I hope you will sign it and share it. And hopefully throughout this webinar, we will share other action items for you in order to join us. So on to the topic today, and the topics of the day, if you will, are the global pandemic, COVID-19, and Israel's looming annexation of yet more Palestinian territory. Primarily what's being talked about now is the Jordan Valley. Now, there have been many webinars on annexation over the past few weeks. Hopefully you've had a chance to check them out. However, mainly they've been highlighting political and legal analysis. They have been informative, but ISM wanted to give people a chance to hear from Palestinians on the ground, because there have been a number of opportunities to hear legal and political analysis. I'm not going to go into annexation unless there are questions at the end. Only to say this: while annexation is a big and very serious issue, indeed a violation of international law, it's an international crime, it's important to realize that and understand that Israel's annexation of Palestinian land, is not new. It's not new in practice. As Palestinians have been saying, the land that Israel wants to now annex by law has been de facto in practice, in fact, annexed for decades. And it's not only West Bank land that has been annexed. We know that Israel has annexed also the Syrian occupied Golan Heights. It annexed, in fact, and in law, the East Jerusalem, which is occupied under international law. And it has been annexing Palestinian territory, even part of what's now the international community has recognized part of Israel, which is 78% of historic Palestine, of Palestinian homeland. Even land inside what is now recognized and Israel continues to be taken from their Palestinian owners. And just to give a brief example, I am from a village that is inside the 1948 borders. It's called Me'elia, and half of Me'elia's land has been taken over by the Israeli government through the years in order to build settlements and communities for the large numbers of Jews that Israel wants to recruit and is recruiting from around the world to come and settle the land. So from the very beginning, for over 7 decades, Israel's plan has been one of colonization, to get as much land Palestine as possible, with as little Palestinians on it as possible. And so the annexation of land and these inhumane policies, the murder, the maiming of Palestinians, the cutting off of livelihood, is just part of that ongoing plan while the international community is silent. And this is why the International Solidarity Movement wanted to give you a chance to hear from some activists on the ground in Palestine. What is being done in this time of global pandemic and with yet another looming annexation at a time when the international community doesn't seem willing to do anything to hold Israel accountable? I have a really great panel here, 2 activists from the West Bank and 2 from Gaza. And while they have long bios, I'm only going to briefly introduce them right before they speak. We're going to give 5 minutes for each speaker just to make introductory comments and then try to take as many questions as possible. So if you have questions, please put them in the comment section wherever you're watching from, and the moderators will try to get those questions over to us. So the first speaker we have for you is Wafa Al-Udani. Wafa is a journalist and coordinator of the Foreign Media Unit at Al Thuraya, which is a media institution that focuses on social and family issues. The Foreign Media Unit, of which she is coordinator specifically, is concerned with strengthening youth skills in order to enable them to speak about their rights in English and to an English audience. Wafa is joining us, as I mentioned, from Gaza, where her parents fled during the Nakba in 1948 from their town of Bir Saba, what Israel has renamed Beersheba. As a journalist, Wafa has covered the Israeli inhumane and illegal blockade of Gaza that is entering its 14th year, as well as Israel's onslaughts of 2008-2009 and the 51-day bombardment in the summer of 2014, which took over 2,200 Palestinian lives. Among the 18,000 homes destroyed in Israel's 2014 bombardment was Wafa's own home, the home of her family and the home of her in-laws. Most recently, she's reported from the Great March of Return, which she has been at, even as Israel has been accused of intentionally targeting journalists during these protests. Wafa, welcome.
Thank you, Aidan. Thank you for introducing me. And I really would like to thank everybody who are watching us right now. I extended my thanks also to ISM for holding such a panel. Yeah, thank you again, Waida. Okay, so I was asked indeed to talk about the latest update here in Gaza regarding the coronavirus outbreak and regarding the Israeli siege here in Gaza. Actually, before nearly 3 months from now, the Ministry of Health announced 2 cases in the Gaza Strip. So the authorities here announced the state of emergency. So everything was completely shut down, including universities, schools, kindergarten, wedding halls, and all the institutions. Indeed, those 2 cases are for 2 people who came from outside, from others. And those people, those 2 persons returned back from Pakistan, I think, yeah. And then after that, nearly 70 cases are affected for this virus. And now nearly we have 53 Palestinians got recovered, and we have only 1 old woman died of this virus so far. We have also right now only 15 cases affected with the virus, but they are still in the quarantine facilities far away from Gaza. We can say that they are near the border area. So we can say that the Ministry of Health, that is indeed, it is under, the brink of collapse, but they manage indeed to control, we can say to control the.
Did we lose Wafat's sound?
Okay.
Wafa, are you speaking? We can't hear you. Okay, now we've lost video. Of course, Gaza faces constant electricity and power cuts and have to deal with only a few hours of electricity per day, which means that sometimes our friends and families and activists in Gaza have to run their equipment on stored up battery power or generators. I don't know if that's the problem that Wafa is having, but oh, there she is. Wafa,
she just returned.
Yes, if we still have problems, I'll move on and then try to come back. Wafat, can you try to say something?
Yeah. I was talking, sorry, pardon me for this, cut. Actually, I want to continue what I was saying. I was talking about the coronavirus outbreak here in Gaza and how the Ministry of Health, that is already under the brink of collapse, managed to control this pandemic, and now we have only 15 cases in the quarantine centers or the quarantine facilities near the border. We can say the main reason maybe for controlling this pandemic from spreading here in the Gaza Strip, maybe because of the precautionary measures that are taken here in Gaza. So for those who return from outside, they have to spend like 21 days in these mandatory quarantine facilities before returning or meeting their families inside the Gaza Strip. So those people who returned from outside, when they tested positive, they have they are allowed to get out of these facilities and meet their family. But when if they are tested positive negative, so they have to stay in these quarantine facilities. Regarding the people and how they act under such outbreak, you all know that Gaza or Palestine live under Israeli siege for long years, nearly for 70 years, over 70 years so far. So such, conditions, such lockdown measures are not people here. So there is Israeli bombing laws. We used to see the empty streets. We used to see that so many facilities are closed, or so many centers and institutions closed. So many items missing from the markets and this stuff. So, but the people at the very beginning, they follow the precautionary measures and they just stayed home. But for the rest of the people, actually, they think that, or they just feel it is like Israeli bombing or Israeli air strike or stuff. So they act so randomly. But the condition right now, everything returned as before the announcing of state of emergency. So everything, is opened again. And the people here, just returned to their daily life before the announcing of state of emergency. But also they
Sorry, I think we lost Wafat's sound again. So I'm going to move on to the next speaker, and then we'll have hopefully have a chance for Wafat to come back in. Our next speaker is also joining us from Gaza. Ahmed Abu Artima is the founder of the Great March of Return, which I hope you have heard about and have followed. In 2018, thousands of Palestinians met his call on Facebook to take part in a massive unarmed protest toward the artificial barrier fence that Israel has erected to really imprison the 2 million Palestinians that live in Gaza in this small strip of territory, forbidding them from going back to their land and really keeping them surviving on not even the bare minimum of what people need to survive, not to mention freedom and dignity. And when Ahmed put this call on Facebook, indeed thousands, if not tens of thousands, responded, demanding freedom, dignity, and the right to go home. Ahmed was born in Rafah and is a refugee from El Ramli, which is inside 48. He currently works as an independent journalist and author, and we are really honored to have him here with us. Welcome, Ahmed. Ahmed, you're on mute. Just unmute yourself, please.
Sorry, again, thank you, Huwaida, for this introduction, and thank you for ISM for organizing this panel. Yeah, so you want from me now to speak about the Great March of Return?
A little bit about the Great March of Return and what people on the ground in Gaza are feeling now in this time where there's looming annexation, which we're talking about annexation of the West Bank, but obviously Gaza is entering its 14th year of this inhumane blockade, making it very difficult to survive. What is the mood on the ground? What are people thinking in terms of the annexation? What are your thoughts on that? What you can relate to us?
Yeah, the people feel more and more how this occupation is very heavy and very expensive upon them. Yes, what's happening now, either in West Bank or in general, it's just the continuing to the Israeli colonialism and the Israeli occupation, which started on 1948, actually maybe started before that year with the British with the British colonialism. So the people in Gaza, yes, they feel sad. They feel they are alone. They feel that Israel has impunity because of the maybe because of the complicity of the formal international community, the international support and the international bias. So unfortunately, we as Palestinians, we have the right, and we have the right, the normal right, like all the peoples, to live in our lands with dignity, with the freedom. But Israel have the power. Unfortunately, in this unbalanced world, it appears that the power now is more important than the morality. And this is why the Palestinians decided to participate in the Great March of Return before 2 years. The Great March of Return was clearly an expression of the will of life and the will of freedom and the will of resistance. It was a clear message, a strong message that we cannot surrender, we cannot adapt with the slow death, we cannot adapt with the Israeli humiliation. Yes, it's very long time. The Palestinians struggling since more than 70 years, and they lost tens of thousands of martyrs, hundreds of thousands of prisoners and injuries, but we don't have other choice. And the same thing is still we can still say it now with the latest developments with the annexation. Yes, the annexation the annexation, actually, it's not surprising. If some people feel surprised with this Israeli plan, so this means that they don't know anything about the nature of the Israeli colonialism. The plan of the annexation makes the things more clear. It makes the situation that it's completely illusion. It's completely illusion if we thought one day that we can make peace with Israel. Israel has problem with our existence itself. Our problem with Israel, unfortunately, is not only because we have some different opinions about the borders, but the Israeli problem with our existence. It see the land from the river to the sea without Palestinian people, no Palestinian people. Israel psychologically treat with us exactly like the United States treat with the native peoples there. So yes, we are still, and this is what push us to feel hope. We are still here. We are millions here, and our existence is resistance. We resist against the Israeli occupation only by our by our existence, because Israeli try to remove us from this land. So yes, to summarize what I try to say, it's very sad. It's supposed to be very disappointing, but in the same time, we as Palestinians, the plan of the annexation makes the situation very clear. We should free our minds from any thinking about that Israel can accept Palestinian state or something like this. We are now in a clear reality of apartheid, a clear reality of settler colonialism, and we don't have any choice but two choices: to have the same destiny like the native peoples in the United States and America, or to resist in the different ways, to resist, as I mentioned before, by our existence here, to resist by all the popular, by the boycott outside Palestine, and we don't have a choice but to continue until we get our freedom.
Thank you, Ahmad. Indeed, existence is resistance. And
yeah.
And like you said, the United States, where I am speaking to you from, has also the same kind of history for hundreds of years oppressing Black and Brown Indigenous communities. And right now we see a massive uprising that hopefully we'll have a chance to talk about, because I think there's a growing awareness that struggles of oppressed people, wherever they are connected. And to talk to us from the West Bank now, it is my honor to introduce to you someone who you may all know, Bassem al-Tamimi, who is joining us from the village of Nabi Saleh. Bassem was born just 10 weeks before Israel's war of 1967 and the occupation of the West Bank and Gaza and other Arab lands by the Israeli occupation forces. Bassem Tamimi has spent his entire life as a grassroots activist. His commitment to popular nonviolent resistance has been recognized by the European Union and Amnesty International. His daughter, Ahed Tamimi, was imprisoned for 8 months as a child for slapping an Israeli soldier after he came on her family's land after shooting her cousin in the head. Bassem works mainly in Nabi Saleh, which is a very small village, just I think 400 or 500, a population of only 400 or 500, Bassem, I think, right? And it's encircled by Israeli military infrastructure and illegal settlements. So welcome, Bassem. And I hear Ahed is also with you? If she is,
تعال
welcome
ما
to
جدولنا
both.
مشان تحكي شوي. مشان تحكي شوية جدولنا.
So we can see you ahead. تعالي.
تعالي.
هاي.
Hi ahead. How are you? كيفك؟
تمام الحمد لله، أنت كيفك؟
تمام. It's good to see you. حلو شفناكي. I don't know how you want to divide your time, باسم عهد.
يعني we will try
together.
together. Yes.
Yes, it's all yours. Go ahead.
First of all, I will like to thank you everyone, and to thank you Huwaida and ISM for this opportunity to talk together, because we are a partner in this struggle for our humanity and for our rights everywhere, because not the Palestinian is occupied only. All the world is occupied by the colonization and the economic system and the capitalism, the colonization. Everyone is colonized in his mind. Our occupation is direct, but there is indirect occupation everywhere. For that, for our humanity, we all must be united to free our life from this colonization that control everything, and controlling our life and controlling the people life just for money and for their interest. Israel is, for me, is not the problem, because Israel is part of the problem, because it's the guard of the interest of the capitalism, colonization, and military industry. For that, we are all over the world suffering the existing of Israel as a colonization project in our land. I don't know about to want to talk about the annexation, because for me Israel is one settlement. It's just Israel. It's the big settlement. For me, all our land from the river to the sea is occupied. We want to go to the detail, because the colonization want to fragmenting our mentality to talk about the detail and push us about away from our strategic goal, that to talk about that 30% of the West Bank or 2% of Gaza Strip, all of that percentage that talking about but Israel is controlling the land and the people from the river to the sea. This is what our problem after Oslo agreement, and the big mistake, and the occupation of our mentality, and talking about the two-state solution, and Israel since that want to legitimize the existing of Israel in the 78% of the historical Palestine. That is the only goal for the Israeli, and they want to take the land step by step. This is the policy that we feel. We are in 62% of the West Bank is Area C. We are under full control of the Israeli. What's the meaning of annexation? If last year I have my home here is in Area C, I have a demolition order and other 13 houses in Nabi Saleh, that mean 80% of the village under the demolition order. We are waiting in any moment the bulldozer to come and demolish our houses. That mean we last year they demolished one of these houses to remind us that we are here and we can come and any time to demolish your homes. And this mean that we can't make any plan for the future to continue existing in our land. This is a silent ethnic cleansing in Area C, because I couldn't take the risk and build other floor for Ahd and her brother on my home. That means the new generation will be moved to Area B, Area A, which is under siege, and we are under in the window stands that we still just waiting when the Israeli decide to throw us out of Palestine. I think this is a new plan for the Israeli. The annexation is the first step to push the Palestinian in any way outside their land, because they are believing in the big lie that this is a land without population for a population without land. And I think the main problem in this time of the world, that Israel and the supporting of the Anglican, the Christian Zionism, that they support to make great Israel, and built the temple on the after demolishing the Aqsa Mosque. And this is what they believe in the Torah and the myths, that they believe, waiting for Armageddon battle and all of these myths. And we believe they want to push the situation for the religious conflict. And we see that Israel and the Israeli right wings want to make to take this opportunity by the supporting that comes from the Anglican and the Trump. But I feel as a Palestinian that we must wake from the illusion that we live under this illusion for years and years. And now to protect our land, we need to be unified. And our big challenge in our life, and this generation life, Ahd and her generation, that the Palestinian political party and political system become part of the challenge in front of us, because we are not unified. We haven't a liberation project to continue our resistance to free Palestine. To talk about the two-state solution as a goal, I think the people will not come to fight under this low-ceiling political project, because it's failed, and we can't continue making the same experience, waiting the people, the world, to wake up from this illusion. And I think that we are all over the world must unified to build a new project to talk. I feel that we must talk about a one-state solution that maybe more just and acceptable solution in this time. I will give Ahd some times to talk and waiting for any question. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Bassem. Hi, Ahmed.
أول شيء شكرا لكل اللي بحضروا واللي مشاركين في البرنامج اليوم.
بدك تترجمي هويدا؟
She says, first of all, thank you to everyone that is participating in this program tonight.
بدي أحكي شوي عن دور الشباب الفلسطيني أو في كل العالم بالنسبة للقضية الفلسطينية.
I want to talk a bit about the role of the youth, the Palestinian youth and youth around the world in the Palestinian struggle.
بالنسبة لي بشوف إنه معاناة الشباب معاناة كثير صعبة بعيشها تحت الاحتلال، بس بحبش أخوض بتفاصيل المعاناة كثير، لأنه بشوف إنه إحنا مش بس ضحايا، إحنا مقاتلين من أجل الحرية كمان.
I see that the struggles of the youth are numerous and they're great, but I don't like to just focus on the difficulties that is imposed upon the youth in the situation that we live, because I don't see us, the youth, just as victims. I see us as actors in the struggle for freedom.
بشوف إنه لازم الشباب بشكل عام يبلشوا يناضلوا نضال اجتماعي اللي يحسنوا من الأوضاع الاجتماعية جوا البلد، أوضاع من حقوق النساء، من الفساد، لازم يحاربوا بالأول عشان هاي الشغلات، وبعدها نبلش نواجه الاحتلال بشكل مباشر بكل ما نملك من قوة إنه نواجهه.
I see that the youth really should focus on the social issues that confront our society, from women's rights to other forms of oppression and inequality, to work on unity within our society. And then when we make our internal society stronger, we can directly face the occupation. of course, she's saying it much more eloquently than I'm summarizing here.
بشوف إنه يعني لما نيجي نواجه الاحتلال نضال وطني، فإنه نتحرر نيجي على مجتمع منيح، مجتمع فيه المرأة قوية، مجتمع فيش فيه فساد، فيه عدالة، فيه مساواة.
صوتكم يا شباب.
So that, you know, when we do this, and then when we prevail against the occupation and the colonizers, we will prevail with a society that is whole, that has a strong role for women, that is not plagued by corruption and internal ills. So working on our society so that we are stronger to confront the occupation and colonization, and after colonization, that we will have a whole and a strong society.
وبشوف كمان يعني كشباب فلسطينيين بشوف إنه مش راح يرجعوا يكرروا أخطاء الجيل اللي قبلنا، إنه إحنا كشباب مش راح نكرر أخطاء الجيل اللي قبلنا.
And I see that we, the Palestinian youth, are not going to repeat the same mistakes that the generation before us made.
الجيل اللي قبلنا ناضل واستشهد وانأسر وانجرح عشان حل الدولتين، والعالم وإسرائيل ضيعت هاي الفرصة.
The generation before us, I mean, they struggled, they fought, they were martyred, injured, they sacrificed a lot for the cause of freedom, and the international community basically laid to waste all of this struggle and sacrifice.
أعطى ثقته للأمم المتحدة مقابل إنه يتنازل عن جزء كبير من أرضه.
مين عطى
الجيل اللي قبل؟
the previous generation. The generation before us put too much faith in the UN and the international community, and accepted to basically accept that Israel will take 78% of our homeland. So they put too much faith in the international community and accepted the conditions that the international community put on Palestinian rights and freedom.
فبالنسبة إلي ولجيلي إحنا ليش نرجع ننأسر ونستشهد وننجرح عشان ناخد نص أرضنا؟ لا إحنا بنناضل ثلث أرضنا لسه مش نصها وجزء صغير منها. لا ليش إحنا ما نناضل وننأسر ونستشهد عشان حل دولة واحدة، عشان ناخد فلسطين كلها، عشان نرجع فلسطين كلها ونعيش في دولتنا اللي هي من حقنا.
So why should my generation also sacrifice their lives and their health and everything in order to just get a sliver, less than a third or a quarter of our homeland? No, if we are going to struggle, we're going to struggle for all of Palestine, to get back all of Palestine so that people, regardless of religion or ethnicity, can live in freedom in the entirety of the land and not be isolated in small patches of land.
إنه ناضل عشان دولة نعيش فيها مسلم مسيحي يهودي كلنا مع بعض، بعيد عن الاحتلال والصهيونية اللي إحنا دائما بيحكوا إنه إحنا ضد اليهود. لا إحنا مش ضد اليهود، إحنا ضد الصهيونية، وبالعكس إحنا في كثير يهود داعمين إلنا، فهي مشكلتنا مع الصهيونية والاحتلال.
What we're going to struggle and fight for, what we are struggling and fighting for, is one state in all the land of Palestine where people, Muslim, Christian, and Jews can live together as equals in freedom, free from occupation, free from colonization. People often say that Palestinians are against Jews. We're not against Jews at all. We're against Zionism. In fact, our partners in this struggle who stand with us, a lot of them are Jews. So we are against Zionism and the oppression that has inflicted upon us, not against Jews, and we're struggling for a future where we can all live together.
وبشكركم كلكم كمان مرة، وشكرا على كل الدعم والوقفة مع القضية الفلسطينية.
And again, I thank you and thanks everyone for their for supporting and standing with the Palestinians in their freedom struggle. شكرا عهد. Thank you.
دا أقول عهد بس كيف حالك عهد؟ أوصل لها تحية.
الحمد لله تمام. أهلين أهلا وسهلا.
أحمد اسمه.
هلا بيكي، سعيد بهاي الفرصة.
الله يسعدك وما أسعد.
أحمد just communicated.
تسلم يا أحمد. شرفنا فيك.
obviously Palestinians are so separated that they can't physically meet, and Ahmed has never been to the West Bank and can't currently go. Neither can Bassem and Ahmed go to Gaza, even though they're only about an hour and a half drive from each other. And last but not least, and hopefully we'll have about 10 minutes left for questions, is Abdul Karim Dalbah. I have known Abid for almost 2 decades now. Abid is a Palestinian journalist. He's a field researcher and human rights defender, and he has been an ISM coordinator almost from the beginning, for almost 2 decades, as I said. He is an educator and a trainer in nonviolent resistance. He's been campaigning for human rights and Palestinian freedom since the 70s. He's going to talk to us about also the annexation, but also strategies for international solidarity with Palestine based on his decades-long experience and historical perspective, and as well his current activism. Abid, اتفضل. You're on mute, Abid. Mute. Oh, you're still on mute, Abid. Mute.
I don't. What?
Yes,
Yeah.
good.
You can hear me?
Good, yes.
Okay. So thank you. Thank you, Huwaida, and for everyone. I don't know what happened.
We just lost your video, but we can hear you.
Yeah, okay. I was proud to be one of the Palestinian activists in the grassroots movements, and also proud to join ISM in 2002, to know you and all our colleagues, international activists around the world. First of all, about the annexation, as you said in the beginning, it is not new. Yes, it is a horrible plan now, but it is not new. It started for more 1 century, since Balfour Declaration until Trump promise or something like this. So it is not a new plan. Especially in 48, you know that Israel supposed to be like by the United Nations 49% of Palestine, but when they established annex more than another 28, which comes 78% of historic Palestine, then now they are going to annex more 30%, or what is the percentage is not important. And the Palestinians, the same thing, the Palestinians use and still fighting and for their rights. What's important for me is, since the Palestinians didn't get their rights, the main basic rights, freedom, right of return, and justice, so we will keep fighting. Fortunately, the Palestinians will not build as a nation. They will still exist. Existence is resistance, but yeah, we use non-violence resistance, we use military resistance, all kinds of resistance. Palestinians try to do it, and they're still doing it until they get their rights. The main thing that if we didn't get right, it is not like makes sense to talk about what's the next after the freedom. First, the Palestinians should have their freedom in order to choose, to free choosing. If it is 1 state, 2 states, who is our enemies, who is our neighbors, who is our, it is not the time. Now, as a grassroots movement, yes, we do the first intifada, the second intifada, when the ISM was created at that time. So we have more, we feel that we are not alone in the world. So we feel that we will continue until we get our rights. The main issue that annexation under COVID-19, always the Palestinians have many crises, many secondary crises or next, but the main topic is the occupation itself, the colonialism, the apartheid system that's happening. So we always, under any threats, focus on the main topic, which is fighting the occupation until we get our rights. So yeah, it is difficult under in any countries. In any countries, the crisis happening, all the effort in that country become the main issue. So in Italy, when COVID-19 become like a big deal, all the country defeat that. But here we are under, I don't know, a racist apartheid system, occupation, that even during coronavirus, COVID-19, Israel continue their killing, as they kill Iyad Hallak, Ahmed Arikat, and other during this crisis, and also continue house demolishing, land confiscated. So this is the annexation is continue. In the other side, the Palestinians, even the grassroots, maybe in this difficult time, as a grassroots movements, still like trying to resist as much as they could, but this resistance will be improved. And it is the time that the international community continues standing until the Palestinian got their rights, freedom, independence, and right to return. Without, it is now to continue that. If it is not now, it will not happen again. So we are our comrades, human rights, around the world to highlight the voice of the Palestinians, also get in the activities around the world in order to end this racist apartheid occupation, in order to live and then to choose our future together. Without this, nothing will happen. If it is not now during the annexation, if this annexation happened just now or they postponed it for a while, the Israeli supported by American policy continue their plans. So in the other hand, our resistance should be continued in order to get our rights. So what has, like activists, we feel that the activity around the world against annexation, against the occupation is continued. Going. So we depend on that, and depending on our grassroots resistance, no one can blame the Palestinian if we did get our rights. At the end, what the Palestinian can do next, because nothing. Yes, maybe the issue of Palestinian life matters. Important or the most matter is the Palestinian rights. So we feel that we are not alone. Will be confused. Nowadays, there is more resistance, more hotspots like now there is in Paris. Now I don't know.
I'm gonna cut you off, sorry, not only because of time, but because your sound is cutting out. So maybe you can get closer to the mic as we move into question and answer. But thank you for that.
Okay.
We have a lot of questions, and I think what I'm gonna do, we only have really 5 minutes left from what we allocated, but I'm going to, for those that can stay a little bit of extra time with us, I'm going to go about 15 minutes over. If you can stay with us, great, just so we can tackle as many of these questions as possible. What I will do is try to ask a few of them and then ask each speaker to just take 2 minutes and answer one of them or a little bit of each. But I'm going to ask them together and then give each speaker kind of in order, like 2 minutes to comment on them and try to answer them. If you think one is more relevant to you, like there are some questions specifically to Gaza, please take on that one. So the first question is, how does annexation change how we must look back on previous negotiations and the promise of peace from the USA and Israel? So how does annexation change how we look back at negotiations? The next question, what does annexation mean for the future of the Palestinian Authority? And what options or responses can the Palestinian Authority take? So what are their options? The next question, some of these I have names on, some of these I don't, but the next one is asked by Jamie Roberts. This one says, will the Israeli occupation forces make attempts to remove as many Palestinians as possible before annexation? And does Israel plan to give citizenship to the remaining Palestinians on the land in the Jordan Valley? And I'll just ask one more question and then go to your answers. This question.
What's the third question, please?
Which, sorry? The third one? The third one says, will the Israeli occupation forces attempt to remove as many Palestinians as possible before annexation? And does Israel plan to give citizenship to the Palestinians that are remaining, that they don't remove from the Jordan Valley? This one says, I noticed that the Black Lives Matter movement is having effects all around the world, especially in colonized places. Is this being felt in Palestine? Okay, so I don't know if that one was from Robin or let's go with the thank you for those questions. Let's go around and give 2 minutes to each person to address the questions that they feel comfortable addressing. Ahmed, can we start with you just because you're first on my screen? You're muted.
Yes. In general, yes, as I mentioned, the annexation plan makes the things more clear. The process of peace is completely illusion. The PA engaged through about 20 years, 2 decades, with the Israeli governments in the negotiations. Israel didn't give the Palestinians anything, because Israel don't see us. Israel only treat with the negotiations as the security, some security affairs. So, but it didn't admit the Palestinian political rights. I think now the situation, and I agree with Bassem, that Israel is one settlement. So our problem essentially with the colonialism here in Palestine. And yes, Israel strategically treat with the with us based on more territories, less Palestinian residents or less Arab residents. So yeah, Israel maybe it cannot make this any time, but this is strategically and deeply in its planning and its thoughts and its strategies, that it tried to remove the Palestinians not only in West Bank but even in Gaza Strip. And just before 1 year, when some Israeli officials admitted that they tried to push the Palestinian youth in Gaza to leave Gaza toward Europe and other countries. So Israel look at the Palestinian existence that it's an obstacle. So it try. Now I don't discuss in the ways or in the tools, but Israel try every way and every possibility to remove or to reduce the Palestinian existence, and even if it give some Palestinians the Israeli citizenship, it will treat with them based on apartheid, not based on equality. So we don't have any choice but to refuse this reality.
Thank you, Ahmed. And so Bassem, if you can tackle this one, I know I said to choose, but if I can have you tackle this one, building on that, as far as how we must look at now the past of negotiations and whatever Israel and the United States is offering, what about the future of the Palestinian Authority? What kind of options do they have? What of their continued existence? Do you have any comments on that? We just unmute yourself.
I think we haven't any authority on the authority, because authority without authority. And we have the negotiations, and as Ahmed says, since years and years, and we just live in illusion. We gain nothing. The Israeli gain from these negotiations to legitimize Israel in the 78% of our historical land, and to show the world there is Israel and occupation. That's something different. This comes from something illegal, comes from something legal, and this is what happened. And also they want to show that the Palestinian people, just the resident of West Bank and Gaza Strip, to go over the right to return for the Palestinians from everywhere, that they become refugees everywhere. And they want to talk about the Palestinian right, as I'd say, as a human rights. And this is not, it's a national right, not just a human right. We are not just struggling because we are suffering, because we have right to struggle. I think negotiation without resistance, this will make our position in the negotiation in a weak, and we can't gain anything. I think we need a real unity, a real unified leadership for a real resistance in everywhere, to unify the Palestinian in one goal and go over the losers goal. And then when we have a struggle and the resistance, and we have a clear goal, and we must focus on the goal, not on the mean. We are in the past, sometimes we talk about armed resistance or popular struggle or armed resistance. We need to use any mean to have our rights. We have the right to use any mean in different situation to have to go and arrive our rights and take our goals. I think negotiation without resistance will not lead to any rights. We need a real resistance, a real strategy, and then to go to negotiation in with a position that to give us and push Israel to give us our rights. Thanks.
Thank you, Bassem. Oh, my God. Thank you, Bassem. Building on that and then moving on to the next one is, yes, at least in the United States, when they're talking about annexation, where you've heard about it in the mainstream media or even with politicians, they're talking about annexation in terms of what it means for the future of a peace process that has been dead for a very, very long time. And in terms of what it will mean for Israel as opposed to what it means for the lives of the occupied and indigenous Palestinian people. And so even this talk, as I think you all comment on, annexation, it's not about that, it's about the larger the larger picture, the larger reality of Israel being a secular colonial state, and therefore what kind of struggle do we have to, what kind of methods do we have to impose to resist a secular colonization, not necessarily talking about two states, but talking about decolonizing. And so Abid, based on what Bassem said about let's not go into and talk about negotiations without resisting for our human and national rights, because this is not just it's not a humanitarian struggle. What can people do in terms of, I don't know if you want to comment on a strategy for the Palestinian Authority, or more if you want to send a message to as far as what the international community can do, what Palestinians can do on the ground. In 2 minutes, if you can give us an idea of what some steps are.
I think it is the issue in the ground is boiling, and without a very massive resistance from the Palestinians in the ground, all over in the ground, and from the Palestinians around the world, the refugees, because we said that it is freedom, right of return is the most important. Maybe comparing with the slogan of Palestinians or Black Lives Matters, what's the main issue is the Palestinian rights, because there is no life under the occupation. If it is known for all Palestinians and international who support us around the world to put pressure in their governments, like what happened in South Africa, most of the international community stand against the apartheid regime, and they achieve at least a kind of victory, so the Palestinians and the international can continue. Nothing can be done while we are very weak in the ground. The siege and the Palestinians around the world didn't take initiative to do more pressure, and the international, the human rights defenders, and also the freedom fighters around the world to do their best to continue their struggle. It is now, not because of the annexation plan, it is now because the life in the ground cannot continue like this. And I think all the Palestinians feel in the main topic is the occupation, and it should be ended. So I think it is now to continue our powerful in the ground and around the world in order to continue. Not have any hope about Palestinian Authority, Palestinian ex-leaderships to continue this struggle, because they are full of more problems, corruption, economic crisis, and other issues. But the Palestinians will not lose anything if they continue their resistance. And I think, and in the ground, Palestinian new generation, like I had said, will do their best to continue, and people around the world will be in their sides. It will be too late if we wait.
Thank you, Abid. So the time is now. And speaking of the time is now, two questions that I wanted. I think we have lost Wafat. She has been trying to get back on, but her connection is not good. So I'm going to ask Ahmed. We have, sorry, this question is from, I think this one is from Robin Dacey. Does BDS have boycott, divestment, and sanctions? Does it have political and civic group support in Gaza? And then Ahmed, if you can, I also want you to tackle the question that was asked about how people in Gaza, are people in Gaza and Palestine in general feeling or relating to the Black Lives Matter movement?
Yeah, this is a question for me, or?
Yes, because I think I was going to ask the BDS one to Wafa, but we don't have her back yet. I don't think so. If you can, how BDS is received in Gaza? Does it have civic and political group support? And then also the Black Lives Matter movement. I mean, how are Palestinians relating to it on the ground?
Yeah, BDS is well known in Gaza, and I personally knew them since long years. They were in solidarity here with farmers and with fishermen. So we feel deep appreciativeness and gratitude to the great work that BDS, yes, and ISM do it with us, with the Palestinian people, and this make us as Palestinians feel that there is still goodness in this world, and the world is not only Trump and the politicians, but there are morality still in yes, relating to the Black Lives Matter. Yes, we as Palestinians, we feel that there are similarities with the in general with the struggles against racism, against injustice, because we are victims of injustice and racism here in Palestine. So a lot of activists and a lot of writers, including me personally, we wrote about the struggle. And I visited Detroit, where you are now, Huwaida, and I met tens of the Black activists here there in Detroit. And it was, but to be honest with you, I will mention something because of now I will speak about Gaza because I didn't visit the West Bank. Because of the complete isolation of Gaza from the outside world, so there are a lot of people, they don't have a specific imagination or a correct imagination about what's happening outside of Gaza. And this, unfortunately, I'm sad to say this, and this may be harm how the people here react with the issues outside of Gaza. And this is one of the forms of the Israeli crime. Israeli crime is not only that they kill us physically, but one side of its crime that it stripped the people here from their ability to connect with the other nations, with the other peoples. So how can we expect from a youth or a person who is 35 or 40 years and he never left Gaza Strip in his life? He never connect with other people. So this is sad reality. But the writers and the people who have opportunity to connect with the world and to know more about the world, yes, they feel deep solidarity with the Black people in their struggle. And we think that it's, and this is what I mentioned in my article, we think that it's one struggle in the world. It's one struggle. All the people who suffer from the racism, who suffer from the colonialism, they are engaged in against the racism and against the occupation. So we have one struggle, and we try to and we struggle to create a world of justice and equality for everyone. Yeah. You are mute, Huwaida. Huwaida, can you unmute?
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you, Ahmed, for those comments. That is so true. Gaza is so isolated. I remember I've taken a few delegations of Black solidarity activists because the solidarity is strong to the West Bank. We weren't able to get to Gaza. And the relationship, the depth of the understanding is felt. Because we have Wafa back, I'd like to maybe give the last question. We have two more questions that I wanted to get to. I don't know if they necessarily apply to Wafa. This one is from Stacey Evans. She asks if any COVID-19 related donations can be sent, like masks and sanitizer. I don't know right now if they're needed in Gaza, because I know that there has been a pretty impressive Palestinian initiative to make masks and even send masks abroad. But is there a lack of masks and sanitizer that is needed? And if so, and people wanted to send donations, where could those be sent to? Wafat, did you have anything to say on that?
You are asking about donation and where the people can send it or stuff, because your voice was cutting away, cutting out.
Oh,
so can you say the question again, please? Yeah, sorry.
Sure. If people can send, if it's needed, COVID-related donations, specifically masks and a sanitizer, is it something that's in shortage in Gaza or the West Bank? And if so, and people wanted to send donations, where would they send to?
Yeah, as I said in the very beginning, you know that Gaza is under unfair, severe siege since 2006, and many things. There are shortage in many.
I think we lost Wafat's sound. Sorry, Wafat, we lost. Can you?
Pardon me again, sorry. Yeah. You know that the Ministry of Health, as I said before, that it is in the brink of collapse, as many, the economic situation and the health situation and everything here is on the brink of collapse due to the long years of Israeli siege on Gaza. So yeah, of course, there is a shortage in many things regarding the things that are used for protecting themselves from this this virus. You know that Gaza can handle only like 100 to 150 cases here in Gaza. So if this number increased in any moment, so the Ministry of Health here will not be able to cope up with such pandemic, and things will be much worse here in Gaza. Indeed, yeah, there are shortage in many items like that are needed for fighting this pandemic, fighting this or confronting this virus. So yeah, but indeed the quarantine, the mandatory quarantine facilities here in Gaza help them so much to help the people here, or help in not having this virus spreading away in Gaza. But of course, the Ministry of Health here and the people of Gaza, they are all against this pandemic, against annexation, and against many things here in Gaza. So they are just calling for everybody, calling for the world, for everybody, for the free people, for the international community to intervene and to help in ending the unfair siege that is imposed here in Gaza, and to help also in stopping Israel from violating the international law, whether in Gaza or in whole Palestine.
Yeah. So I think that thank you. And Wafa, I think summed it up great in that, yes, there are COVID-related items that are needed, but there are also items that are needed that relate to basic necessities of life that Israel is preventing, as Gaza has been deprived for well over a decade, and living under this criminal blockade. And therefore, the political action that we can all undertake to force a political change to force Israel to comply with international law so that the blockade is lifted, so that the annexation, the colonization stops. I think that that's where Palestinians are asking the world to step up efforts. Of course, donations to sustain Palestinian life on the ground is always needed, and there are great organizations. So if I would say something on that, Stacey, it's not to try to send it individually, because there are so many restrictions on getting things in, but there are some larger organizations that have managed to, that have channels that get through. You can look at the United Nations Relief Works Agency, and then in the United States, we have a number of organizations like Kinder USA, like the Middle East Children's Alliance, and so many others. And I think in Europe also, Medical Aid for Palestine, that are getting these supplies in through channels that they have developed over the long years that they have worked. But let us do that, and let us focus our efforts on changing policy. One of the ways Palestinians have called for that is the global boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. It's something that people can do easily from their own home, with their unions, with their religious groups, with their work organizations, stepping up the pressure on Israel, turning Israel really into a pariah state until it learns to comply with the law. This is not singling Israel out. This is saying Israel does not deserve special treatment, should not be allowed to continue violating the laws and the lives of Palestinian people with total impunity. So for more on boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, please, if you haven't, if you're not plugged in, please look up bdsmovement.net for ideas on how you can get plugged in. And if you want to learn more about the international solidarity movement, join, perhaps not now because there are travel restrictions, but certainly you can help spread information that ISM is putting out from the ground, and hopefully join and support. That's palsolidarity.org. Hopefully that's also being put in the comments section. And let's join together, because as I think all of our speakers said, this is a global struggle. This is a movement that is in the streets, not just in the United States, in Europe, being felt in Palestine to the extent that Palestinians can feel it and can move. It is a struggle against global oppression and colonialism and racism and economic domination. And it is a struggle that we all need to unite our forces into to overcome, because the powers that we're up against are strong, but the power and the voices of the people can be stronger. So thank you again. I know we went over. If you stayed with us, thank you. Thank you. Stay tuned. Thank you again for all of our speakers and activists for giving us your time and your thought. We'll be in touch with you further for sure. And the struggle continues. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. I'm happy of this opportunity, and I hope we stay in touch. Thank you.
Thank you, Huwaida, and everyone.
Thank you, Huwaida. Thank you, everyone. Nice meeting. الله يخليك.
يعطيكم العافية.
يعطيكم العافية جميعا. فرصة يا حمد تعرفنا عليك.
بنضل على التواصل إن شاء الله.
إن شاء الله.